16-year-old Simon Spear couldn't wait until after school to continue his email correspondence with the mysterious Blue. The two classmates had been exchanging emails using pseudonyms since beginning of the school year. They connected after Blue posted on a student-wide message board that he's gay. Their secret emails have become a safe haven, the only place where they can both fully express their hopes, confide in one another, and explore their sexuality, even if they don't know one another's true identity, which they don't. Simon is certain his warm and well-meaning parents will accept him if and when he comes out, but he's not so sure how Blue's family will react. He's not even sure who Blue truly is. So when another student at Creekwood High School discovers their emails on a school computer, Simon's world is turned upside down. He's being blackmailed, and his blackmailer is threatening to release the messages, outing the both of them and exposing their relationship. Suddenly, Simon's world begins to shift over questions of honesty, community, and isolation, identity, acceptance, and love. And that's the plot of today's Velshi Band Book Club feature, the best-selling, award-winning, and beloved young adult novel, Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. With chapters that switch between Simon's perspectives and the email correspondence, Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda is a masterclass in writing that feels both endearing and incredibly real. The author pays close attention to secondary characters, allowing Simon's friends and family to shine as some of the brightest spots in the book. Even Simon's blackmailer, Martin, is given the opportunity to redeem himself and apologize. Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda is also funny. Albertalli's writing, particularly the dialogue, it's quick, it's witty, it's laden with cultural references that firmly establish the story in the early to mid-2010s. It rings true to teenagers of any contemporary time period. Even the title is a small joke, a play on the pejorative phrase, the homosexual agenda, which is often used by anti-gay organizations. At its core, like so many of the best young adult novels that we've featured on the Velshi Band Book Club, Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda is a coming-of-age story. Here, Simon navigates the subtle changes in loyalty within his friend group and turns to music to work through the feelings he can't properly express through words. He embraces and rejects and again embraces his family and experiences first love in ways that we've all read about before. By grounding Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda in these familiar motifs, Albertalli is able to tell a much more nuanced and complex story, one that gracefully grapples with questions of identity and sexuality. Depicted using first-person narration and carefully layered characterization, Simon is a typical protagonist who also happens to be gay. Quote, as a side note, don't you think everyone should have to come out? Why is straight the default? Everyone should have to declare one way or another, and it should be this big, awkward thing, whether you're straight, gay, bi, or whatever. I'm just saying, the only people who have to think about their identity are the ones who don't fit that mold. This frank normalcy makes Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda radical, powerful, and pioneering. Members of the Velshi Band Book Club are already very familiar with the disproportionate number of novels that are removed or banned because they tell LGBTQ plus stories or are written by authors from that LGBTQ community. And this book is no exception. Having been banned, removed, and challenged in numerous states across the country, including Florida, Texas, Michigan, and Utah, there's a message in Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. It's that everyone deserves a love story. I'm joined by Becky Albertalli, the author of numerous books, including the beloved young adult novel. Welcome to you, Becky. Thank you for being with us. The book is fantastic. It's Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. It was long-listed for the National Book Award for Young People's Literature all the way back in 2015. Becky, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm not excited about the bannings and the circumstances, but I'm really glad to be here.
Yes, and that's actually the silver lining on this cloud. We are getting to talk to a lot of authors, and our viewers are getting to hear from a lot of authors about a lot of books that they wouldn't otherwise necessarily choose or encounter, and they're loving them. So thanks, banners. One of the main themes of the book, in Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, it's introduced very early on. It's still as relevant as it was when you wrote about it. It's adolescent loneliness. Blue writes in one of the email exchanges, quote, you can't imagine how much I hated middle school. Remember the way people would look at you blankly and say, okay, After you finished talking, everyone just had to make it so clear that whatever you were thinking or feeling, you were totally alone. The worst part, of course, was that I did the same thing to other people. Makes me a little nauseated just remembering that, end quote. Let's talk about that. What's that idea and what are you trying to get at?
I think, when it comes to, getting in the heads of my teenage characters, I'm definitely tapping into a lot of the feelings that were very present, even defining for me when I was in middle school, even high school, even college, even adulthood, really. And there is this kind of distance that you can feel sometimes between like the chaos of what's happening inside your own head and this perception you may have of other people who I think are probably inside their own heads, maybe just as chaotic as you are.
I like that idea. Tumblr, which is a very popular 2000 era blogging platform, almost exists as a character of its own throughout the book. It's where Blue and Simon meet and ultimately where Simon is outed. Talk to me about the significance of Creek Secrets Tumblr and what it represents.
Creek Secrets Tumblr was, that was fun to write. It's so funny because it really does feel kind of like a historical fiction novel in that way right now, because it has its own very specific culture as a platform. One thing I want to lay out here too is they call it the Tumblr. Mm-hmm. I promise I know it's just called Tumblr. They are referring to the specific Tumblr for their school, and that's why they call it that. But I do know I am an old millennial, an elderly millennial, but I don't call it that like you would call it like the facebook.com or something. And it's just like, it's such an interesting site because, it is more anonymous, I think, than a bunch of other platforms, even of its time. And there's this kind of language that if you scroll through Tumblr a lot, you get the sense of it's almost this own kind of just Tumblr dialect. I don't know. I find it so poetic. It's something that really intrigued me at the time. I find it really intriguing, actually, about other platforms as well. Like Reddit also has its own kind of cultural norms and nuances to the way they talk. But, Simon is such a Tumblr kid. That entire universe exists within, a particular moment in recent history. I get a little nostalgic for kind of the heyday of Tumblr.
I want to read a passage that encapsulates the teenage experience between parents and teenagers from the teenager's perspective. Quote, I pour myself a mug of coffee and add an avalanche of sugar. My mom watches me stir. I didn't know you drink coffee. Okay, this. She does this every freaking time. Both of them. They put me in a box, and every time I try to nudge the lid open, they slam it back down. It's like nothing about me is allowed to change. Quote, well, I do. Okay, she says, putting her hands up like, whoa there, Buck. That's fine, Cy. It's just different. I'm just trying to keep up with you, end quote. It's an exchange that would sound familiar to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's like a direct call out of my parents. There's this extreme self-consciousness, I think, that comes from trying on new aspects of your identity, of yourself, but having to do this within the confines of just the same context that you've always been in. When you are a teenager living at home with your parents, they know every version of you. They know the baby version of you, the little kid version of you. And your identity is really a moving target, especially at that point. It's mortifying to have to do that kind of in their gaze. It's something I felt viscerally. Sometimes it's still a little like my mom the other day we were sitting at dinner. She's like, "Oh, are those white hairs?" You're like, "Mom, that's unkind."
I'm allowed to have white hairs now at some point.
I am allowed. I am so allowed.
One last thing I want to ask you about really quickly. Music. It plays a major role in the book. He's got a playlist. Simon's got a playlist called The Great Depression. Lots of artists and groups or references from Fleet Foxes to Elliott Smith. Tell me why music played such a big role in this.
You know, I think for me, it always comes back to the characters. Simon, who he is, he's like absolutely somebody who, no matter what, would have very strong opinions about music and just in general, the media he consumes. That's like that more than any particular reference, but just the fact that he has such strong opinions about it is such a central aspect of his character and who his character is too at that moment in his life. I feel like kind of fleshing out his taste in music was one of the ways that I really got to know him. You know, a lot of that was definitely influenced by like my favorite music. I wasn't cool enough to know about Elliott Smith in high school. Like I was definitely in my 20s. It is like maybe the biggest honor to have heard from teens who read Simon, and that's the first time they've ever heard of Elliott Smith, and then they have like gotten into Elliott Smith's music. What a legacy for Simon. That is like, if I've done one good thing, like.
Becky, it's a great book. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. Becky Albertalli is the author of numerous novels, including today's feature, Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, and the forthcoming book, Amelia, If Only.